What strategies do you use to integrate like multiple data sources effectively, ensuring data quality and consistency?
Well, so that's a very big question. We have embarked on a journey of integrating data sources. I think, to your point, it's been a lot of the journey in which we have used multiple data sources, but within the ecosystem of JP Morgan Chase, right? So now we officially are, in my team, of course, in JP Morgan Chase, because we use multiple sources for a long time. But in my case, we are now, integrating with third-party data sources live into like live products, and that journey has been a great one, because I think also it relates to your first question on the data infrastructure. So in the past, integrating with third-party data sources was quite difficult. Like, not only because our third-party, vetting system, of course, is quite onerous, but also because of that, like, alignment of like, okay, the data that you bring me is super different. Like, I need to check coverage. How do you bring it in? The process of bringing that in may take forever. It might not be efficient. Like, and I actually need to run a product that is, refreshing on a daily basis. Yeah. Like, it makes it so that, like, even if I wanted to use other data sources, it would have been like quite impossible to make it happen. And now, as you think about these new ways of integrating, like, for example, with the APIs, we call on an API into an existing product set. We bring in data assets from other sources. We create a clear articulation of the net value that we bring to the table. So I can tell you a live product that we have today. We have a new vendor. So we have a geospatial vendor for our demographic insights that we call on an API based on the geographic zip codes where we see high concentration of customers, and they return to us the kind of the key demographic attributes of those geographic areas. And going through that process of like integrating with this very famous geospatial vendor was not easy, but 10 times easier comparatively to like, what has been in the past, and knowing that also the client experience was going to be a worth it to spend the calories on, right? It's like, clients really value this type of data asset. It tells a very cohesive story to what we have, and the integration through an API with a data architecture that supports that integration and still renders the experience to a customer with like, within like our SLA, right? So it takes less than 3 seconds to render the experience, has been a great move forward, because now we actually have a myriad of third-party vendor data sourcing that I'm very excited about. Like, as I think about customer insights in particular, like, and I told you many of our use cases, right? Like, if we leverage our payments data assets, we answer a lot of questions. But if we get data assets externally, our insights multiply, right? Like, think about, for example, as I was talking to you, the example of the staffing, right? If you know at the time your customers are purchasing on a consistent basis at the store level, you're in a better position to optimize your staffing on a regular basis. We had a client in retail that had 6 locations. They optimized their staffing, saved 25% on weekly payroll. Okay, but think about that client also wanted to get like store traffic data and also employee ID data, of course, de-identify employee ID, the numbers that don't mean anything to me. And then I receive that data into a Snowflake marketplace, which is like kind of the same place in which I'm rendering the insights. Then I can optimize the staffing at a whole nother level, like or at the employee ID level, at also your ability to understand your conversion of traffic into sales, and understanding in which stores you need more traffic, in which stores the issue is the conversion, in which stores your top employees can be moved to different stores. And then we're in a business, of course, in which we're talking about 1,000 stores across the US. So the level of complexity of getting that access to the information on a real time is quite beneficial if you only have all of that displayed into a platform. So I would say that the integration piece, which was your question, I think is most effective when it's like, API or Snowflake or some sort of technology that makes that relatively lightweight. But ultimately, the biggest driver should always be business value. And then also you had 2 questions around data quality and consistency. So in order for you to get excited, you need to start by doing the testing, right? So all of that cool thing of like, okay, what happens and how do you get the clients? Like, you first need to check like, hey, when I get this data, does it make any sense? Like, do I have the right join keys? Like, have we aligned on what is the data model? Like, can we build logic on a consistent basis that if we get the data pattern, like it will give us an output that we care about? So all that we're talking about here needs to always start with the customer, the business need, and how would that be beneficial? Because otherwise it's just, an analytic exercise, which I'm happy to be, analytically challenged, but that's not going to be meaningful nor impactful.
Nice. You refer it as a journey, which I like, and it's great you've had successes. But I guess listeners want obviously data, especially around like integration, data engineering, that aspect. It is a challenge for businesses. So has it been more like, obviously referring to the journey? Has it been like you've sort of learned on the way, and now has it got? I guess a lot of listeners want to know: has it got easier for you to, like, as you've done the implementations, like you just learned and then sort of tailored your approach to get to?
I love that question. Yeah, I think it's been a journey because at the beginning it almost felt impossible. It almost felt like, when you think about the scope and you're like the standards that I talked about from how to do, it felt like it was like so impossible to achieve that at the beginning I spent virtually no calories on. Then I did go into that process of testing with some vendors, and we would get like, offline data assets, and then we would test against what we had, and then nothing matched. And I was like, okay, yes, this is interesting, but like it's not additive. It's completely disconnected to whatever I have. Like, I don't have any join keys. This data may be helpful for a very small subset of client personas. Like, it's also going to be expensive. I also need to go through a process. Like, why would I invest those calories? So I had that quite a lot. And only even getting to a place in which I can receive a data sample, it's talking about like a month's process. So that was a lot of the experience. Today, I actually do have a lot of third-party vendor reach outs, and I have to admit that probably a lot more than I can even attend to or be interested in. Both are very valid answers. So what I can say is that the firm has done a better job at like also having kind of master level agreements with third-party vendors that are already having a relationship with the firm. And that is also making things more accessible, because it's like, yes, I will still need to go through a crazy process, but a crazy process with somebody that's vetted already is something that I can decide to embark on. It's like, okay, I'll create a separate contract, but it's like a separate contract within like all of these first levels of compliance, privacy, and like, data infrastructure have been met. And I think that has been my particular journey. Can I consider a completely net new vendor? I can, but I just feel like my current experience is like it's a better investment from an ROI standpoint if I start with the list of the clients that already have some sort of relationship to begin with.
No, cool. No, it's interesting. No, like I said, I like the journey discussion, because it's ever evolving, isn't it? I think you've got to keep learning. Like, obviously, you can get your way of working, but look, if you're not doing like continuous improvement, your competition's gonna get ahead.
No, that's key. That's 1,000% the case. I think we do a relatively good job at keeping up with understanding what's new. And how to adopt the new technologies, and how to adopt and understand what our competitors are doing, and how do we make our offering differentiated. That has been a good way for me. So like, for example, to your point, given that it's so painful to deal with different vendors, like I established that as part of my vision, and that has helped my talk track. So when I talk to leaders that typically, of course, don't want to invest further calories because, of course, these relationships are costly, I think by explaining, articulating very succinctly the opportunities and how much value is unlocked and how much clients would actually benefit from this, I think it's been an easier journey. So it's not only, to your point, like the technical piece and the compliance piece, it's also around that talk track and the influence for our senior stakeholders for us to stay relevant and to invest in this particular integrations so that the products can get more meaningful and get more value to the clients.